All right. We are going to depart today from John. I was all ready to go to John and continue on in John chapter 8, and the Spirit grabbed me, so I'm trying to get where I'm going eventually here. Now, you know how in most churches, and I could be making a slight exaggeration when I say most, but many, how about many? In many churches, the pastor will start out and he'll read like one little verse of scripture, and then he'll tell what I call the Aunt Mabel story, and he'll go on and talk about this whole story for the sermon, and then that's kind of it, right? And then he kind of brings it back to that sermon, and they usually do that fake laugh where they go, and that's why. Well, today we're going to kind of do the opposite of that. We're going to start out not in a whole lot of scripture, but then we're going to get scripture heavy. We'll be flipping, and hopefully it'll become clear why. There we go. That's where I wanted to be. All right. So this is kind of how it came about, how this message came about today. What is going on over there? I'm not that political, and I really don't preach on political things, but I was following with some interest the repeal attempt at Obamacare. You know, Trump said that's what he was going to do first off the bat, and so that was going on. And if anybody was following that or not following that, the House failed miserably. I mean, they sent 80 bills to Obama. The Republicans sent 80 bills to Obama repealing Obamacare. And of course, he vetoed them all, and they couldn't get over a veto. But somehow they could get it together to send 80 bills to him in 8 years. Actually, probably less than that. And they couldn't get it together as Republicans to send a bill when they own the House and the Senate and the President to get him a bill that would work. And it's because they're not trying to, right? And so I was really kind of disappointed in that. And before this last election, Kate and I hadn't voted in lots of elections because I'd pretty much given up. And then I saw Trump, and I'm like, you know what? And I'm kind of with Pastor Dowell on this. I think he's the last hope we have for the country. And certainly if Hillary had won, we'd already be going down a really bad road. So I'm like, okay, Trump won. Maybe there's some hope. I'm optimistic. I think in general, I look at a lot of things, and some people would say, you look at the downside of things. I just call that contingency planning. But generally, I think I'm an optimistic person, and so I was hoping this would work. But you know what? That guy Ryan, who's in charge of the House, he's just like this little snake guy, right? I mean, and Trump wins the nomination, at which point all Republicans should go for the Republican nominee and say that's our nominee, and he didn't. And I think he purposely blew this thing with Obamacare. And then, do you guys know about the FBI director, Comey? I mean, this guy's crooked as crooked can be, and I don't know why Trump's keeping him, because he doesn't have to. And so these things are going through my head, right? And then I was thinking about J. Edgar Hoover. And if you ever do a study on Hoover, he was an incredibly powerful man because he had dirt on everybody. And that's kind of where we're going a little bit in the beginning of this. And people were afraid of Hoover because he used the FBI to go get all this information on everybody. He could blackmail everybody. He supposedly had files on everybody to blackmail them. How do you blackmail an innocent person?
Can't.
You don't. Right? So what's that tell you? If he had dirt on everybody, everybody had dirt. I mean, if you told me, Pastor Joe, we're going to tell everybody you're selling dope out of Shofar Mountain, I'd be like, go ahead and tell them. Because we're not. The cops can come have a look. I don't care. They don't need a warrant. And so I kind of started out disappointed and disgusted this morning because I was thinking about it and I was looking at it last night. And then I read, and I'll have to keep this PG-13, I read a news article where Dr. Phil, anybody here not know who Dr. Phil is?
Oprah guy, right?
Yeah, kind of like an Oprah guy. He has that saying, well, how'd that work for you? When he knows it's not going to work, right? And it's kind of like a, sociologist, psychologist kind of guy, counselor, whatever. He evidently had a young woman on who was And the people who saw it believed it, and Dr. Phil actually has an interest in making sure that they vet the people on their show, right? And so they had... she'd been sold into sexual slavery as an infant. Like her parents had her and sold her into that. And so she was relating her whole ordeal and everything that had happened to her, and talking about, this is what kind of started me on the track today, because I was discussing with these congressmen, started talking about how there's this international ring that pedophiles are in, and they're rich and powerful people, and there's congressmen, and there's generals, and there's movie stars, and there's all the people that are powerful in the world. Many of these people are in these rings, and they all know it. And so then I was thinking about the FBI and dirt on people and yada, yada, yada. And I remember seeing a report of a woman whose husband was a 3-star general. And she was being interviewed, and she said that you don't make it to your 2nd star, and he was in the Air Force, I think. You don't make it to your 2nd star in the military unless they have something on you. Unless you're compromised, so that they can pull your string and you will dance. And then at the time I saw that, I didn't know very many generals, but then as I grew up in the military and I went up, I started hanging out with generals, and I got to know a lot of generals. And it was really interesting because of most generals I did not like. I just had this sort of filial thing, and it wasn't jealousy, because at the time I was thinking I would like to be a general. I just didn't like them as people. And the ones I liked never got their 2nd star. They were like really cool guys. They were just good guys, and they were leaders, and they were like, you should be in charge. It's kind of like what I was thinking, and they never got their 2nd star. Now, of the handful of generals that I liked. So those two kind of went together on me. And so the rich and the powerful, there's a lot of corruption that's going on. And there's talk about the Hillary and this, that, and the other thing. And so all this was spilling through my head. And turn to Ephesians chapter 6. I'll just start in 1 because it's kind of cool that we're there. Children, obey your parents in the master, for this is right. Respect your father and mother, which is the first command with promise, in order that it might be well with you, and you might live long on the earth. But actually, we came here to go to 12. Because you see, with all the disgust I have for these people that are out there, and the things that I just think are going on, I don't know it, but the starting to line up that, yep, it's a filthy world out there. We get to Ephesians 6:12. And we have to remember that because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies, or in the heavens. And then it goes into, so take up the full armor of Yah. And so we are in a spiritual battle. We as believers, we as followers of Yeshua are in a spiritual battle. And of course, Satan, the adversary, he uses flesh to enact his will here on earth. He uses people, which is why, yes, we are fighting a spiritual war, but there are fleshly battles that we may have to engage in. And in case there's any mistake, flip back to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. And start in 1 just to complete the thought. 2:1 in Ephesians. And you were all dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the ruler of the authority of the air, and the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. This world, right now, is ruled by Satan. Yah the Father is still in charge, and he's going to remove Satan from his position that he is right now. But the prince of the air, the person who's pulling the strings, that has been given the power on this earth right now, is Satan. And he empowers those he will, and so chances are decent that if somebody rises to a high position in this world, whether that be political or military or economic or entertainment or anything like that, that Satan has a direct hand in that. Whether they are witting or not, Satan has a direct hand in them rising, and I think in many cases they are witting. We can also read, we're not going to go there, but 2 Corinthians 4:4, if you want to make a note, where it says Satan is the god of this world. Right? He is the ruler of this world. Because Yah allows him to right now. But that is a fact. And so all this my optimism that I have sometimes, it's like, oh, I really hope this is going to go good now. Not until Yeshua comes back, in the big scheme of things. Don't worry. It's starting out as a bummer. We're going to a message of hope. All right? Because I am an optimist. We, the United States of America, which, once was the greatest country in the world. And we were that shining beacon for the rest of the world to look to and to be like. But, the more I've learned and probably the more we've gone along, the things we do, there's a reason a lot of people in the world hate the U.S. We stick our noses in things that we don't need to stick our nose in. We commit evil in places we got no business committing evil in as a country, and they realize that. And we buy our own propaganda. I'm proud to be an American, or at least I know I'm free. I mean, we buy that, and so we don't really see it. But a lot of the world does see us more clearly than we see ourselves. And I sound un-American here. I actually am very pro-American because I want us to be great again. But I believe that we, the nation, are corrupt to the core, and we're defiled as a people. If you look at our rulers and what we worship, and the football and the Lady Gagas and all that stuff that people do, and we're like Rome. We're like Rome became so decadent, and they lost sight of what they wanted to do, and they collapsed. And they were overtaken by barbarians. Actually, by my people, right? By the Germans. But they were, just chaos and disorder, and it wasn't as good for the people that were in the once Roman Empire, that had a life of, general ease and relative sophistication for the time during the Dark Ages. When all these barbarians took over, it was worse. But the reason Rome fell is because they became corrupt at the core. And they just became gross and disgusting. Revelation 18. Revelation 18, verse 10. Because I think the U.S. is going to fall. I think it's foretold in the Word. And this is just one place. 18:10, standing in a distance for fear of her torture, saying, "Woe, woe, the great city." I've got Babylon here, Babylon, the mighty city, because your judgment has come in 1 hour. Alas, Babylon. Our nation is going to get judged. We have turned from the Father. We have turned from God. We used to be once a nation, under God, one nation under God. That's just something they write on coins now. Nobody in power believes that. Nobody in power is worshiping God in any kind of power. And I think we're going to get judged. And it says in 1 hour. And I've done another whole sermon on this, Alas, Babylon, and I don't want to revisit that. But I do think it's going to be fast when it happens. And so whenever I start thinking this way about anything, oh, this is all messed up, this is terrible, woe is me, woe is us, I always finally come around the corner and I say to myself, well, what are you going to do about it? Because it's the same thing I always say to everybody else when they start complaining, oh, I got this problem, I got this other thing. If I don't say it directly because I'm trying to be nice, I'm thinking to myself, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about your problem? And so I ask myself, what are we going to do about this that's fixing to happen? This corruption that's going on, this terribleness that's going on, the fact that I think America is going to get judged in 1 hour, what are we going to do? And then I put the monkey right on my back and I say, what am I going to do? Because I am right now the leader of this assembly. I'm Pastor Joe Fox, and we're here, and it's like, okay, well, good there, Pastor Joe. What are you going to do about it? And then I start thinking about that again. Jeremiah 3:15, right? I will give you pastors after my own heart who will feed you with knowledge and with understanding. And I tell people I will feed you whether you eat or not is entirely up to you. But I do honestly believe that I am one of those pastors who does that. Somebody asked me that on one of my comments recently. In the old times we had prophets and they spoke for God. What do we have now? I said, well, you got pastors, and I think I'm one of them. You know, I don't have the whole answer, but I've got the piece that Yah wants me to put out there. And so if I'm a pastor, ra'ah, what do I use as an example for how I'm supposed to act? The pastor, right? The shepherd. Pastor's just a shepherd, right? It's just pastor of a flock. It's a shepherd of a flock. It's the same word. And so you go to Psalm 23, which I'm not going to read right now. Most of you can probably repeat it verbatim. But it's like, you know, he leadeth me besides the still waters to the nice green grass. It's a leadership thing. And then I've talked before about, you know, your club and your staff, you know, the hook and the crook. They comfort me. And so it's like sometimes we got to beat off the wolves with the stick. Sometimes we got to use the hook and pull the sheep along and say, come on, sheep. Come on, sheep. And so I think about these things and I do these things. So all of this was flowing through my head this morning. All of that right there. When I was thinking about, all right, let's start looking at John 8 again and figuring out where we're going to go. Because I kind of know where I want to go next in John 8. I have that kind of formed. And I found out about two things again. And I think the Father just laid them in my lap today. It's like, here you go. This is what you're going to talk about today. And the one thing is called the Virtue Solution Project. And the other thing is called the Benedict Option. And these are two things that I just learned about today. And if you had to give it, well, what are they about? We're gonna look into that a little bit. They're about withdrawing and preparing for what's coming. I read about these things, I did some research on them, and I'm like, that's kind of like the Shofar Mountain vision. That's not the nice one. We had a nice one that Abby did. No.
On the back side. Oh,
No, I got the definition on the back side. Anyway, that doesn't look nice. The Shofar Mountain Vision is a united community.
I think it's right there behind the chair.
Seeking a closer, here it is, it's just one Sister Abby did, and more obedient relationship with Yahweh, which has left worldly lusts behind, right? Is that the next one?
Yep.
And is living a simple agrarian life that treats creation with respect. So that was the vision, that is the vision for Shofar Mountain. We are Shofar Mountain to the degree that you want to be part of Shofar Mountain. And so I was thinking about that, and I'm like, you know, a lot of this is withdraw and prepare. There's some of that, because we're coming out of the world, we're coming out of her, my people, and we want to live a simple agrarian lifestyle. We want to get closer to the Father. And those types of things. And so, I got to look this up again because I don't, the VSP, the Virtue Solution Project. Interesting. 2 state congressmen, senators from South Carolina, not at the national level, they're at the state level. They came up with this. I got to look it up again. Virtue Solution Project. They're hardcore Christians. The one guy's dad is a pastor. I think they might both be sons of pastors who made it into political office. And they see what I just described in the first part of this lesson today, how everything is just crumbling and going to garbage, and there's like no way to get this train back on the rails. And so their idea is to create, and there's a web page and you can look it up and see things, but they call them islands of refuge or micro hubs. And what they're trying to do is get believers in Christ, followers of Christ, to come together and set up islands of refuge. A business that has a warehouse in it, or a church that has a warehouse. Every one of these has a warehouse thing. Kind of like the Mormons do with their wards, where they have supplies in the back of their wards too. But it's basically set up these places where serious believers can come together to study the Word, I say of Yah, they say the word of God, and to be able to take care of people so that when this system collapses, there's these little spots of light, if you will, out there that people can flow to, that the goodness can come, because they don't think the government is going to last. These are state senators, or congressmen, whatever they call them, representatives. They don't think the government is going to last, and they're like, some new form of government's going to have to start, and the way government starts, and we all know this, first from the Father, then to the family, then to the community, then to the greater, and that's how government is built. And the family is the basic earthly building block of government. And so, how do you want to destroy government? Destroy the family. How do you want to destroy family? They've been doing it since the 50s and 60s in this country. I mean, there are obvious steps that the government has taken to help destroy families. And that destroys government. So, they talk about that. And I was thinking, wow, this is really neat. This is an interesting concept. They see bad times coming, and somebody said, because the first article I read on them was from a very leftist kind of source, and they said, this is so the hardcore Christians can run away from the gay people, or something like that. That's kind of the angle they took on it. And then they said, it's like John Birch meets the militia and the Klan coming together. I don't know where they got any of that. They're not racist at all. They're just for Christ, and they want to be around people who are serious about the Word, who want to study the Word, who want to prepare for times that are coming. And so they want to kind of withdraw a little bit and prepare. And then the next thing I read about was called the Benedict option, which is interesting. And so I talked about earlier, because I was thinking this, how we're a lot like Rome. And Rome fell because of the just inherent corruption amongst other things that was in it. And Rome fell in the late 400s. So remember Constantine, who really messed up believers and said, we're going to make the Roman Empire the Holy Roman Empire. Christianity is going to be the new religion. And he changed all those things. I mean, we all know about that. Just a little over 100 years later, Rome falls. The western part of Rome. And the Dark Ages come in. And so Benedict, so that's in the 400s. Benedict is around in the early 500s. And he's a believer. He's a follower of Christ, of Yeshua. And he is disgusted with all the filth and decadence and garbage that's going on from what's left over of the Roman civilization that's in smoldering ashes around them, and the barbarians that have come in. And he's like, this world is awful. I want nothing to do with it. And he went and he became a hermit. And so then I went reading down this whole hermit line, and Brother Justin knows I had this book on hermits, and it's kind of interesting if you ever look into hermits. But he decides, I just want to go get right with the Father, and I can't be around all this noise and all this mess. And so he goes and becomes a hermit, and then, let me get this date right, 530, he actually, because he goes and he's a hermit, and he's serious about what he's doing. He's serious about the Father. He's living a life, setting an example. So what do you think happens?
He gets attacked.
People start following him. People are like, this guy gets it. He has removed himself from society. He's out here in the middle of nowhere in these mountains hiding. I want to hear the wisdom he has. Dude, this wisdom is awesome. You got to get into his program, what he's doing. And so the next thing you know, he forms a monastery, which is famous later, Monte Cassino. And of a whole bunch of people who want to do what he's doing, which is withdraw and prepare. And he then writes the Rule of Saint Benedict, and it's like a pamphlet kind of thing, and it's the rules for living. And it can all be summed up in the Latin motto that they kind of came up for themselves, and it was ora et labora. Ora et labora. Anybody here speak Latin?
Something in labor.
Right. Prayer and labor. Pray and work is what it is. And that's what they were all about. Praying and working. Praying and working. And today, there are Benedictine monks and Benedictine monasteries and Benedictine things, and they all are based on that. They all flow from that. And they are generally tight communities that are, they call them contemplative. They're spiritual. They think about things. They think about the Word. They think about Christ. They pray a lot. Now, the cool thing, because I'm always relating to us, right? Remember I started this section of it saying, what can I do? the cool thing about these people, the Dark Ages came in, and for all the filth and decadence and disgust that was Rome, there was a lot of civilization and good things. There was knowledge, and there was writing, and there was education, and there was all these things going on. And the barbarians came in, and they call it the Dark Ages because that light was basically almost snuffed out. Because these barbarians didn't care about that stuff, and they burned things and destroyed things, and people got stupid. And except in these monasteries and others like it that St. Benedict sent up. And what they preserved there was education, because they would teach the monks and the people that would come there how to read and write and think about things. The skilled artisan crafts, whether that was making wine or making leather shoes or doing these things, they kept those because they built these little communities around these monasteries in like these little islands, these little, what did the VSSP call them? The islands of refuge, these little micro hubs all over the place. And they built those things, and they actually saved civilization, because later when things started calming down, from those places is where the knowledge spread. And so they kept the flame burning. Today, it's the same thing. There's Benedictine communities. There's one in eastern Oklahoma that I just found out about, and I'm actually going to go try and check them out and just see what they're all about. I think they're Catholic, so they've got issues there, but you can always learn things from people. And so that's going on. Who here has read Atlas Shrugged? Those of you who haven't should read it. I made my kids read it when they were, 8th grade?
No.
9th grade? High school? It's a book about this thick. There's like speeches in it that go on for 15 pages. It's fascinating. What?
There's a 100-page speech.
There's a 100-page speech, okay. But I made my kids read it, and then I told them, and I never did. I said I was going to get them a shirt when they finished it that says, "Who is John Galt?" Because that's a big part of that book. And basically what happens in the book, I won't give the book away, but a big thing that happens in the book is all the best and the brightest in society leave. They bug out. They withdraw and prepare. Which, by the way, that's what we're going to call the sermon today. Withdraw and prepare, because I've said it like 3 times now. They just disappear. They're like, I'm not going to contribute to society anymore. I'm done. And that's called going Galt. They can see in the book that society is falling, and they're like, okay, I'm not going to be a party of this. Just like Benedict, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do my own thing out here. Y'all fall. We'll rise out of the ashes later. Pulling out of society, deciding that one is not going to support the system anymore, is not the same thing as saying, that's it, I'm not going to work anymore. I'd sign all my books 1 Timothy 5:8, and that is words to the effect of anyone who does not support his family, most of all those in his own household, is worse than infidel and is denied the faith, or is denied the faith and is worse than infidel, something like that. We basically still have to support our families, but that doesn't mean we have to work for the man to do it. Right? That doesn't mean we have to contribute to the system. And so, withdraw and prepare is what the Father was showing me over the last couple days. Now, please turn, this is where we start getting into the Word. Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, lest you receive of her plagues." Boy, that sounds a lot like what all these different little pieces, threads are going into. The system is corrupt. Come out of that system, my people, Yah's people, it's Yeshua speaking here. Come out of the system unless you are going to end up getting what's coming to them. Leviticus 11, all the way to the other side of the book. Leviticus 11 is the good chapter for food. When people ask me, well, why don't you eat things that go forth on pause? I'm like, well, go to Leviticus chapter 11, read. All right, Leviticus 11, let's look at 44. I'm interested because I was looking at this in my King James. We'll see how it is in here. For I am Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall set yourselves apart, and you shall be set apart, for I am set apart. It says in King James, be ye holy, for I am holy. This is better in the scriptures. Be set apart because I am set apart. And do not, look at this, defile yourselves. And then this says, with any swarming creature, the one creeping upon the earth. But here it is, be set apart because I am set apart. Do not defile yourself. And so here's the same concept of to avoid the defilement that is there, be set apart, be different. We are a peculiar people. Look at 45. For I am Yahweh, who is bringing you up out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am the Lord, who is bringing you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. And you shall be set apart, for I am set apart. It says in King James, you shall be holy, for I am holy, or be ye holy, for I am holy. But holy means set apart. And so here again is the concept of being different, being away from, not being with all this defilement that's going on. Look at Leviticus chapter 20. 20 and 7. And you shall set yourselves apart, and you shall be set apart, for I am Yahweh your Elohim. Again, set apart is holy in the King James, but it means set apart. And then look at 20:26. And you shall be set apart to me, for I, Yahweh, am set apart, and have separated you from the peoples to be mine. So we are called to be set apart. We are called to not be there with those people. And so if we're talking about the VSP and establishing, what was that called? Islands of refuge, micro hubs as they called it, or if you're talking about the Benedict option of establishing monasteries or communities, all these things, when we read about them in the Word, all these different little concepts, the Word calls them camps. Right? These were camps of the Israelites, and there was a camp here and there was a camp here. Do you know that before the Dark Ages, and you can find a map online, it'll show you it says Christian, where all the believers in Yeshua were situated. There were communities of places, and some were bigger than others, and they were scattered all around the Mediterranean, through Turkey, as you're looking at it, through Turkey and around the Mediterranean like this, and they were little pockets. During the Dark Ages, during the chaos that happened, all of a sudden Christianity, followers of Yeshua, spread. Because in that darkness, there were little lights preserved that were shining, and they were allowed to come to the full. And so, Deuteronomy 23:14. Let's look at that. Because these camps that are set apart, there's something we need to know about that. And we've talked about this here before. Deuteronomy 23:14. Somebody's going to beat me there and beat me to the punch. For Yahweh your Elohim walks in the midst of your camp. Wherever 2 or 3 are, the Holy Spirit's there. Yahweh here is walking in the midst of the camp to deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore your camp shall be set apart, so that he does not see unclean matter among you and shall turn away from you. So it is important that as we withdraw and prepare, that we keep our camp, in this case, this camp of believers here, that we keep ourselves set apart, that we keep ourselves holy, that we keep ourselves pure for the Father. Now, who here is righteous? Totally righteous? Nobody, right? So we have the atoning blood of Yeshua that covers us, but that does not give us an excuse to go out here and eat ham sandwiches on Shofar Mountain, right? And so we've got to keep this camp set apart, and by setting it apart, holy, that makes it different than everybody else. It's not like the world is. And so withdraw and prepare. Withdraw from Babylon. Withdraw from this decadence that's out there. And that's not just physically withdraw, right? We could be here in the middle of nowhere. I've got a phone. I bet you I could get the decadence pretty quick on my phone. My little iPhone, right? Because it gets on the internet. So you could find anything. Sometimes I find it on Drudge Report. And it's like, whoa, what are we reading about here? I sort of started this sermon today. I was reading about decadent people. So, okay, that's the one hand. But then I get this question a lot in the comments when I talk about this to one form or another. About how, well, if you're withdrawing, if you're just pulling in and closing the gates, What about the Great Commission? All right, so let's look at the Great Commission. Matthew 28:16. Matthew 28, verse 16. Now this is Yeshua speaking. (28:16). And the 11 taught ones went away unto Galilee, to the mountain which Yeshua had appointed for them. And when they saw him, they bowed to him, but some doubted. And Yeshua came up and he spoke to them and he's saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Now wait a minute. Did I not just say that Satan was ruling this earth? Mm-hmm. He is. But the authority still rests in Yeshua. Anytime he wants to take it back from him, he can. He has not done that yet. He's going to. He has not done it yet, though. But he still has the authority. Therefore, go and make disciples, make taught ones of all the nations, immersing them, baptizing them in the name of the Father and Son and the set-apart Spirit. That part was actually added to the Bible. Teaching them to guard all that I have commanded you, and see, I am with you always until the end of the age. Well, this says go and make disciples. And I'm talking about withdrawing and preparing. So how do you make disciples if you withdraw and you prepare? One more, and then I'll, because you never ask a question that you don't know the answer to, right? Let's look at Matthew chapter 5. Because this is the other one I get from people. They ask me this. Well, if you're going to hide out there on Shofar Mountain, how are you going to let your light shine? But when he, Yeshua, saw the crowds, he went up on a mountain. And when he was seated, his taught ones came to him, and having opened his mouth, he was teaching them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, because theirs is the reign of heavens. Blessed are those who mourn. We're going here for a reason, but I just want to read this because it's important. We're actually going to 16, but we're going to read this because it's important. Blessed are those who mourn, because they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, because they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, because they shall be filled. I hunger, I thirst for righteousness. And so I figure I'm blessed, I'm going to be filled here eventually. Blessed are the compassionate, because they shall obtain compassion. Blessed are the clean in heart, because they shall see Elohim. Blessed are the peacemakers, because they shall be called the sons of Elohim. Blessed are those persecuted for righteousness' sake, because theirs is the reign of heavens. So, followers of Yeshua are going to be persecuted for righteousness' sake. Just because we've decided, I have decided to follow Jesus, doesn't mean that you're not going to get persecuted. You'll be blessed if you are. Blessed are you who, when they reproach and persecute you and falsely say every wicked word against you for my sake, rejoice and be glad, because your reward in the heavens is great. For in this way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt becomes tasteless, how shall it be seasoned? For it is no longer of any use but to be thrown out and trodden down by men. Here we go. You are the light of the world. It is impossible for a city to be hidden on a mountain, because the city on a mountain has all the lights on it and people can see it forever away. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket. Put it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. Right? We all know that song. But put it on a lampstand, and it shines to all those in the house. Let your light so shine before men, so they see your good works and praise your Father which is in heaven. Well, how are you going to let your light shine there, Pastor Joe, if you're going to withdraw? Or how are the Shofarians going to let their light shine if you tell them to withdraw? And I'm telling you, the same way that Benedict did it. The whole world is getting flooded with darkness. If you don't withdraw from that to keep your little light burning, it's going to go out. You will be surrounded by the darkness. And so there is a need to withdraw from that filth and that decadence and that Babylon, so that we together can keep that light burning. Because when I'm having a bad day, Fletch could be having a good day. So I'm up. When Roger's having a bad day, Sister Janelle could be having a good day. So he's up. And so we have to be together. Do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together, all the more so, especially as you see the day approaching. Words to that effect. And so that's what that is about. John 17. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There we go. John 17 and 16. I'm in 17, 16. Here we go. They are not of the world, as I am not of the world. Set them apart in your truth. Your word is truth. As you set me in the world, I also sent them in the world. This is talking about being in the world, but not of the world, right? That's a phrase that Christians use a lot. Be in the world, but not of the world. As you sent me into the world, I also sent them into the world. And for them I set myself apart, so that they too might be set apart in truth. And I do not pray for these alone, but also for those believing in me through their word, so that they might all be one as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, so that they too might be one in us, so that the world might believe that you have sent me. That all goes back to Echad, but that's another sermon. And the esteem which you gave me I have given them, so that they might be one as we are one. In them, you in me, so that they might be perfected into one, so that the world knows that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. Father, I desire for those whom you have given me might be with me where I am, so that they see my esteem which you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, indeed the world did not know you, but I knew you, and these knew that you sent me. And I have made your name known to them, and shall make it known, so that the love with which you loved me might be in them, and I in them. We are the light. We're supposed to carry the light. We've got the light of the Father through Yeshua in us, and wherever we go, that light's going to shine. But that light can be squished out if we let it. If we let ourselves go after these cares of the world, it's just like that seed that was cast out, and it starts to grow, and the cares of the world and the thorns and all that clog it up and go. And so as times get worse, it's important for us not to be a part of that. Look in 1 John. Hopefully this Bible has it in the same order. 1 John chapter 2. 15. Do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. And so people who say today, I can't do what you guys are doing because you don't understand my job in Cleveland is very important and I need to be here, that's the world. That's the world telling you you can't withdraw from the world because what you want is all these shiny things. Because all that is in the world, here we go, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And here, we'll just finish the last one. And if the world passes away and the lust of it, but one doing the desire of Elohim remains forever. Withdrawing means withdrawing from the world. Look at Romans 12. Told you we were going to be flipping. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove, I think it says test in the King James, what is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim. Don't be conformed to the world. The world tells us all these things we have to do, all these things we have to value, and those things are concentrated really, in many ways, in towns and cities and where the population is. That's where all the stuff is. And Father says, come out of her, my people. That means physically, too. It also means spiritually. Don't be part of spiritual Babylon. It means emotionally. It means all those other things. But it does also mean physically. Last one about the world. Look in John chapter 15. There's Luke. John 15:19. If somebody gets there before me, you can read it. I can't.
If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I choose you out of the world, For that reason, the world hates you.
Bam. And that goes back to that group of senators or congressmen or whatever they were in South Carolina, and the first article I read about them where it's like how hardcore Christians are trying to hide from the gays. It was just this vitriolic-filled article that was full of hate towards these people, that all they wanted to do was be around other people who worship the Father like they do. And the world hates them for that. You guys know about the Myers-Briggs test? Have you given your kids the Myers-Briggs test? You can do it online for free. It's amazing. We did it with all of our kids when they were about high school age. It's helpful. And so I looked up today. I said, I wonder what Yeshua was. I bet you somebody has done that. He has spoken enough in this word that you can actually apply the Myers-Briggs standards to him. And as it turns out, and lots of people everywhere I went agreed on this, they said Yeshua would have been, if he had taken the Myers-Briggs, his personality type, as he showed it, was an INFJ. And if you don't do Myers-Briggs, you don't know anything about that. But I'm an INTJ, and I was like, wow. And my T stands for thinking, and his F stands for feeling, and that's very true. Because I'm not a very feeling person, I'm a very thinking person on the scale of the two. Yeshua didn't have to think because he knew. You know what I mean? He didn't have to think about things. He knew. And so he was a feeling, and he had deep feelings for people. But he was an introvert. I knew he was an introvert because he used to withdraw all the time. And so, introverts, it doesn't mean that, because I am an introvert. I'm actually a pretty strong introvert, and people don't understand what that means. It doesn't mean I can't stand up here in front of you and talk to you. But what it does mean is when we're done, I'm exhausted. And really all I want to do, and if there were twice as many people here like there was that one Shabbat, I need like 2 days of just alone time, just to recharge my batteries. And extroverts, it doesn't mean that they have to be in front of people. It means they recharge. They become themselves again when they're around a lot of people. Yeshua, he was always around a lot of people. He had people follow him. He had people eating with him, sleeping with him, talking to him. Huge crowds would show up, and he constantly withdrew. Luke 5:16. Because we're talking about withdrawing and preparing. But he was often, talking about Yeshua, withdrawing himself to lonely places and praying. He constantly got away from the noise, he got away from the hubbub, and he would pray. When he prayed, what was he doing? He's talking to the Father, right? He's communing with the Father. He was being contemplative as the Benedictines do. What about us? Revelation 12. Withdrawing and preparing. What about Shofar Mountain? I constantly think about y'all. I think about y'all as individuals. I think about us as a group. I think about what the Father wants for us, from us, what he wants from me. Revelation 12, and a great sign was seen in the heaven, a woman clad with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor, in pain to give birth. And another sign was seen in the heaven, and see, a great and fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. And do you guys know about September 23rd? It's amazing. I'm not going there in this sermon. Just look up September 23rd, 2017 stars. And look at the charts. It is amazing. Boom. I had a guy that wants to come do a documentary. He's a Messianic, and I'm just kind of done with Hollywood-type people. But he really wants to come do a documentary on that here. Probably not going to happen. But you guys owe it to yourselves to look that up. That's kind of interesting. And with a tail he draws 1/3 of the stars of the heaven, and he throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she bore a male child who was to shepherd all the nations with a rod of iron. Well, who are we talking about here? Yeshua, right. The woman is Mary in this case, and Yeshua. But it also, because it's imagery, it stands for bigger things than that, as you're about to see. And her child was caught away to Elohim and to his throne. Where is Yeshua right now? Where is he? Sitting at the right hand of the Father. Father sitting in the throne, right? And so this is Yeshua. And the woman, so now Yeshua's there, and it says the woman fled to the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days. How many years is that? 3.5 years, right? So now we've just switched to the tribulation time frame, and the woman is representing the church, the body, the believers that are on earth at that time. And so it says here, this is so important, she fled to the wilderness to a place prepared by Elohim, by God, in the wilderness. So do you think God is just going to go and then there's going to be like these beautiful houses and buildings and food storage and all this stuff for the church, the remnant, to flee to? Or do you think he's going to use people like he used Benedict, like these two Congress critters are talking about from South Carolina, like I believe communities like Shofar Mountain are doing, where he says, go to the wilderness, establish these beacons of light so that there is a place for my people to go when the time happens. And there came a fighting in the heaven. Wait, how far do I want to go with this? Yep. Skip down to 13. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Did we not just hear about when you're persecuted, don't worry about it? You'll be having a cool place in the heavenlies next to the Father? And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished again for a time and a half time. That's 3.5 years from the presence of the serpent. And out of his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river after the woman. Throughout the Bible, water is used a lot as imagery for population, for people. And so the woman, the church, flees to the wilderness, and the adversary, the Antichrist, is sending people, lots of people, after her into the wilderness to cause her to be swept away by the river of the people, keeping with the analogy. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened his mouth and swallowed up the river which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. I'm telling you, I'm starting to come to a realization here that some of this is going to be tied in with that rocking to and fro with the earth. And at critical times, when people are coming after Yah's people in the wilderness, earth changes are going to happen that are going to affect those people that aren't necessarily going to affect the people that they're going after, which is the saints. I think that's where that's going right there, because it says the earth swallows them up. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed. So we all know this, right? This is mine. It's also one other place in Revelation. This identifies who these people are that are in the wilderness safely in a place prepared by the Father. And it says, those guarding the commandments of Elohim and possessing the witness of Yeshua Messiah. Or it says in King James, those who keep the commandments of God and have a testimony of Jesus Christ. That's us. Christians have a testimony of Jesus Christ, but they don't keep the commandments of God. They say they don't have to. Jews, Orthodox Jews, keep the commandments of God, work with me on this, but they don't have a testimony of Jesus Christ. There's only a very few people that have both of those together, and it's right here. And they're in the wilderness where Yah is protecting them. We need to get our camp in order so that Yah will continue to walk amongst us, so he doesn't spew us out of his mouth. Because we've got a job to do coming up in the future. And so we need to start with ourselves, first of all. And we need to get right with the Father. And we need to get more contemplative. And we need to focus more on him and less on just garbage in our lives that surrounds us. Last bit of scripture we're going to look at. Go back to Matthew chapter 5. I'm talking about getting ourselves squared away. We left off in 16. Let's pick up in 17 of Matthew 5. Yeshua speaking, do not think that I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot nor one tittle shall by no means pass away from Torah till all be done. Torah didn't go away. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so shall be called least in the reign of the heavens. But whosoever does, because he just talked about changing jots and tittles of Torah. Or not one little bit of Torah is going away. But as long as we're talking about that, anyone who breaks the least of these and teaches others to do so shall be least in heaven. But whosoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the reign of the heavens. For I say unto you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall by no means enter into the reign of heavens. You heard it said that of old, you shall not murder, right? That's one of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill is what it says in King James, that you shall not do murder. And whosoever murders shall be liable for the judgment. But I say unto you that whoever is wroth, mad, angry with his brother without a cause shall be liable to judgment. And whosoever says to his brother, Racha, shall be liable to the Sanhedrin, to the judges. And whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be liable for the fire of hell, of Gehenna. So he's not taking away Torah, he's making it harder. He's making it harsher. The Pharisees, the scribes, they were looking for ways to define it to the point where some of them were starting to figure out how to get around it. All right, so, well, if we do this. He said, let me tell you something. You know that you're not supposed to murder. I'm telling you, if you curse at your brother like that, that's the same thing. And then he goes on to other areas. If then you bring a gift to the slaughter place, an offering, and there remember that your brother holds something against you, leave your gift there before the slaughter place and go. First make peace with your brother, and then come and offer your gift. So don't think you're coming to me all holy-doly, woo-woo. I'm going to worship the Father. I'm going to leave this gift on the altar. I'm going to go into my prayer closet. I'm so holy. I'm so righteous. And you got these problems with your brother? Forget about that. Go take care of this stuff on earth. Go talk to your brother and get that squared away. Then you can come back, is basically what that says. Be well-minded with your opponent promptly while you are on your way with him, lest your opponent deliver you to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you shall be thrown into prison. Truly I say to you that you shall by no means get out of there till you have paid the last penny. Agree with your adversary quickly, I think it says in King James. You've heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not commit adultery. Well, that's cool. You got that part. You can't commit adultery, but check it out. I say to you that everyone looking at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. He made Torah harder. He didn't make it easy. He certainly didn't do away with it. He said, you just think if you just do the act, you're in trouble. I'm telling you, if you think about it, you're in trouble. And if your right eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out and throw it away from you. For it is better for you that one of your members perish than for your entire body to be thrown into Gehenna, hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away from you, for it is better for you that one of your members perish than for your entire body to be thrown into hell. We talked about keeping the camp holy, keeping it set apart. What do we do with people who don't follow Torah in the camp?
Remove them.
You remove them. You throw them out. Why do we throw them out? It says in Torah, why? So that we don't pollute the rest of the camp. So that the Father will still continue to be pleased with the camp. It's the same concepts here that Yeshua's putting out. He's just making it personal now. He's saying, hey, you got to take care of yourself. And so before we start worrying about other people, before I start worrying about Brother Fletch, I got to look at myself and say, I need to square this. Could have gone there. Yeshua talked about the beam in the moat, right? Hey, before you worry about that little speck of dust in your brother's eye, why don't you take care of that beam, that big old 2x4 that's sticking out of your own eye? And it has been said, whoever puts away his wife, let her give her certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever puts away his wife, except for the matter of fornication, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a woman who has been put away commits adultery. Again, and see, he's talking to these people who are trying to get around the rules. And their heart wasn't in the right place. Again, you heard it said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but you shall perform your oaths to Yahweh. But I say to you, do not swear at all. Neither by the heaven, because it is Elohim's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great sovereign. Nor swear by your head, because you are not able to make one hair white or black. But let your, I like it better in the King James, let your yeas be yea, and your nays be nay. And what goes beyond this is from the wicked one. You heard it said that an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the wicked. Whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. These are instructions for us to square, ourselves away. We need to square ourselves away before we start counseling our brothers and our sisters on how to square themselves away. We need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and start getting right with the Father so that we can be that shining lamp up on the hill. We need to clean up our camp. And right now, we've got a little camp. We need to be set apart. We need to be holy. And we need to ora et labora, pray and work. We are supposed to be one of those beacons on a hill for the coming dark age. I am firmly convinced of that. People are going to be attracted to the light of Yeshua that is in us, and the Father's going to send them. But we got to make sure that light's shining and not dull and running out of oil. And I could go there with the 12 virgins, but I'm going to leave it at the 10 virgins? 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. I'm going to leave it there. Withdraw and prepare. Let's pray.